All right, welcome to this episode of Market Shares. I'm your host, Tony Blodgett, and I'm back again with DK, Dan Keller. If you watch this show with any sort of regularity, then you know who Dan Keller is. But we're going to talk a little bit today about leadership. Dan is a branch manager here for us. We've worked together for many years, but now Dan is in the role of regional sales manager, business coach to our sales teams, and we've been talking a lot. So we just thought we would have a quick conversation about what it takes to be an effective branch manager specifically, I think is where we want to settle in on this conversation, because I think it's changed over the last year. I don't think fundamentally it's changed ever, but I think that over the last couple of years, we got into the mode of kind of trying to keep the wheels on, right? Just trying to babysit the massive amount of production that was happening, keep people calm, really manage the fires that were coming up in the day-to-day because there was so much volume, so much production. It was hard for operations to stay on top of things. Things were slipping through the cracks with the sales with sales teams, and so it required a lot of maintenance, I guess. That doesn't really lend itself to great long-term growth and leadership, as it turns out. So I think a lot of people need to be more intentional.
That's what we're going to talk about today, is how important it is to go and lead your team again. Because what is it that a quarterback does? The quarterback's a playmaker. They're running the plays, but great quarterbacks like the Tom Brady's of the past and these really great quarterbacks, they make things happen. And we got to go back to making things happen as branch managers and producing loan officers.
Well, and the first step is get back in the game.
Yeah.
Get off the sidelines. Yeah. We don't need people to run interference anymore. We need people that can lead and lead by example.
Yeah.
So I want to speak specifically about producing branch managers. I think there's more than one way to run a successful branch in the mortgage business, but most of the people that have ever reported to me have been producing branch managers. And I used to have a saying that I had learned from one of my mentors and a previous boss of mine, Sam Ellsworth, who we both know really well and still works with us here. Sam used to say, there's three things that you really need to do as a producing branch manager. You need to be able to produce. Obviously, you need to be a good producer, set a good example on how it is you do your production and lead by example. You also need to be able to coach and train the people within your branch and within your team so that they can have a high level of success. And third, you need to recruit and grow within your branch. And I would argue that I would usually tag onto that and say, look, as long as you do two of those three things very well, then you'll be successful as a branch manager. But I got to be honest with you, my opinion on this has shifted a little bit as this market has transitioned. And I do feel like the first two are really important. You have to be, if you're a producing branch manager, you have to produce at a high level. That's still going to be where you're probably going to derive the majority of your income, depending on the size of your branch. I mean, earning overrides or even profit in a market like this is not going to pay the bills with how thin margins are and how much volume's out there. So you still have to be able to have one eye on your own production, which not only brings in that revenue and keeps you sharp and in the game, it's an example for the people around you who want to build a practice like yours. Second of all, obviously, you need to be able to coach and mentor and train loan officers on how to do business the way that you've done business. But the one where I think that we see the least amount of effort and success by a lot of branch managers is on the recruiting side. Yeah. And that's something that I want to change over the next, year. One of my goals in 2023 is to help branch managers and area managers and up, but mostly branch managers be really effective recruiters, because growing your team in a market like this, I think, is going to be paramount to being prepared to really capitalize on the next surge of business we have in the future. And there's a lot of loan officers out there who need the leadership by example and the day-to-day coaching and training. And if you can get effective at recruiting those people and sharing with them the value proposition that you can bring to their business, you can really explode right now. So I am now of the belief, and really a goal for 2023 is to say, you got to be great at production, be a good loan officer, but also do good volume. You have to be great at coaching, mentoring, and checking in with your team. And you got to be a good recruiter. What are your thoughts on that, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I'm making recruiting calls. I'm a branch manager, and I have for the last 4 years. And when I'm calling loan officers, and I'll just give you exactly the feedback that they're giving me when it comes to what they're looking for in a mortgage company. We think it's operations, we think it's rates, we think it's things that, well, if you're a producing loan officer, you know exactly what it is. What has helped me go from being a $30 million producer all the way up to, during the refi boom, a $200 million a year producer? It was the ability to be coached. So like you just hit it right on the head. Coaching and leadership is so important. I think that you're spot on with all three. I think here at New American Funding, what you've been able to build for us in the Northwest allows us to do all three. Like, it's really easy to have a recruiting call with someone. We're a direct lender. We service our loans. We have Lisa Britton and Lori Larsh that is a text or a phone call away. They literally are the smartest underwriters that I've had an opportunity to work with in my 15-year career, to help us get more loans through, to help us say yes more to our realtors, right? So I think you've built the infrastructure that's easy to recruit to. The culture thing is what we've built in the last year. So I've been back here now for a little over a year. But the best company I've ever worked for in 15 years, best operations I've worked for in 15 years. And so what we've really been focusing on over the last year has been that culture, the coaching, okay, the leadership, the leading by, like you said, leading by example. And that's really where you can take that $10 million a year producer to 20, the 20 to 40, stuff like that.
I think you're right. And, thank you for the compliments. I've worked really hard to create the environment that we have here in the Northwest region and here at NAF. But that aside, I think that branch managers need to be more intentional than ever at recognizing that part of my job description is to recruit. So therefore, I have to carve out time for it. Just like if you're a top producing loan officer, you have to carve out time to make sales calls, right? You have to make time to check back in with your clients, and you have to set them up on drip campaigns and all of these things. And if you're going to be effective at coaching and helping your loan officers be successful, you have to carve out time for that as well. You have to put together curriculum. You have to have training exercises. You have to go alongside them in many cases. And same with recruiting, you have to carve out time for it. And I think that's the missing link for so many people, is in their schedule over the last couple of years, they have not set aside the time for recruiting. And I also think that they don't necessarily have the tools. Like, they know what to go say to a realtor they're trying to earn business from, but what do you say to a loan officer to get them to come join under your leadership and your team? And I think that's where we can teach people. And I know you've been making a lot of these recruiting calls yourself. So maybe if you have a couple bullets, like what are you finding that loan officers, what's resonating with loan officers who want to make a move? And what do you think a branch manager could share with them about why you should come work for me?
It's funny, my video last week to my realtors for this lunch and learn that I'm hosting this week is on marketing. And I said, you could be the best realtor in town. You could be the best lawyer in town. But if nobody knows who you are and how good you are, you're going to go broke. Right. And so it's the same thing with us as branch managers, Tony. Like, if John Smith over at ABC Mortgage Company is having an okay time, but he's not getting the coaching, he's not getting the operations, he's not getting the culture leadership that he wants, but he's just kind of going with the flow because, nobody's calling him. If nobody calls him, if I don't call him, John Smith doesn't know who Dan Keller is. But if I call him, I'm good, but I continue to follow up and then continue to add value like we do. We have people in here to look at the studio, and we have people in here to do our coaching calls with us that are at other companies. Yeah. And the reason why we do that is because we know that 99% of the people that we have in here aren't going to do what I've done and what you've done, and that's implement. So I'll show you everything. I'll go on Mortgage Coach and give you my scripts. because there's a chance you probably won't implement. But if we can bring you in and expose you to this stuff when the time is right, you're going to think of us. You'll know who Dan Keller is, and I'll be top of mind. But nobody's going to know if you don't make those calls. So that's my number one tip, I think, to our branch managers or to any branch managers or regionals watching this. Tell your story. We've got to get our story out. And our story most likely is valuable to someone that needs it. So I go into these phone calls just trying to be helpful.
Yeah. When someone's looking to literally uproot their career and come work for another company, they got to like the company and they got to like the brand and what you stand for and the products and the programs and the pricing. That's kind of like table stakes, right? Yeah. But at the end of the day, they got to go work for a branch or a leader in that company that they believe in, that they think can help them grow their business. And the only way that they can ever come to that realization is get to know you, and that's going to come from you getting to know them and building relationships. And so, I think that I think you're absolutely right. It does, like I said, it's no different than carving out the time for anything else that we have to do. If you want to be effective at recruiting and growing your team in this market, you have to carve out time to do it. If you have questions about what to say when you get someone on the call, then I would seek out some coaching and some mentorship around how to be effective at relationship building and recruiting, because recruiting really is relationship building, right? You're not going to drag someone across the finish line to come work for you who doesn't believe in what it is you can do for their business. But they gotta like you. They gotta trust you, and that happens over time. And it's no different. We talk a lot about consulting with a borrower, right? Like when we talk to a client, it's never about the commission, right? Me and Rich had this conversation on the podcast. Like, I never think about getting paid. Well, it's the same thing with recruiting. You can never think about, I got to get them to work for me. Yeah. Let's build a relationship and see if there's common ground. And then you're going to uncover through the discovery of, talking to someone what's important to them and maybe the challenges that they might have. All of a sudden they feel open to share with you. And you can say, that's interesting. We don't have that challenge. Here's what we've done instead. Oh, we don't have that, situation going on, but this is what we do instead. And all of a sudden they start going, I can now start imagining myself working for you and what that might mean to my business over time. And that's what you got to do. And it's hard to think that, I guess it's kind of like we were talking about, again, to me, it's the same as doing loans. It can't be transactional. It's got to be relational. And they have to envision themselves over time as like, okay, if I had a problem, are you the person I could talk it through with? If I was stumbling with a particular situation, could you help me overcome it? If I wasn't comfortable presenting in front of a group of real estate agents, are you the guy who could teach me how to do that? Right? And like, I know that you're the guy that can do that. Do they know that you're the guy that can do that? And I think that, so many branch managers are just great at doing their job as an originator. They get themselves into a leadership role. They would also be great at mentoring and coaching someone, but they don't talk to enough people to let them know that, A, I'm interested in doing that. And that if you trusted me with your career, I could help you be more successful. We have to find ways of doing that.
The only way to learn how to lead is to get in there and lead. And then, like these books behind us, the seminars that you and I go to, like, I'm not talking like mortgage seminars. I'm talking like Rene Rodriguez type seminars, leadership type seminars where you learn how to lead. And I kind of wanted to put kind of a bow on this whole segment today with this whole culture thing. You and I, about 2 years ago, went and took a class from Rene Rodriguez. And it was my 4th Amplify class, I think, or 5th with you, and then this one was with you. And he always asks, what is your value proposition? Like, hey, you're in a room with 13 other loan officers. How are we going to remember Dan Keller out of the other 12? And I've never been crystal clear on that. And it's been bugging me over the last year or two. And I've been putting a ton of focus and a lot of like soul searching into this, quiet time. And it's crystal clear to me now, Tony. And I know you and I had a conversation around this probably 2 or 3 months ago, that my unique value proposition is our culture. We are a personal development company that happens to do mortgages really well. A loan officer asked me this on a phone call 2 weeks ago. We have a really great culture here, so tell me about your guys' culture. And I didn't go off for 5 minutes on we do this, we're that, number 18 mortgage company in America, blah, 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 all these things. We do happy hours on Friday. We're a personal development company that is really, really good at mortgages. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
Who doesn't want to develop more personally? Who doesn't want to grow themselves personally? And it's so simple.
Well, no, I think you nailed it. I've always felt like my value proposition is helping other people accomplish their goals. When you and I got, when we reconnected a year ago, you had a goal of being in a regional role, doing coaching and training. Yep. I'm like, Dan, let me help you figure out how to do that. Renee, who's behind the cameras here, had a goal of having a career in video. And we talked about how do we make that happen for you. Every branch manager that works for me at some point had a goal of growth and what they wanted to accomplish. And if I can help, I think Zig Ziglar said it, if you can help as many people accomplish what they want to accomplish, right? I mean, you'll have everything that you ever wanted. Yep. And that's always been kind of my goal, is to help people accomplish their goals. And that has to be the approach that we take to this business. So I'm super happy for you to really, land on that and identify that. Well, cool. Well, what an awesome episode. I'd like to maybe have another conversation at some point where we can dive deeper into, really the recruiting process as far as, and we've done this with like sales calls with realtors. Maybe we could do this and talk more about like, what's call number one. If they say this, they go down this path. If not, they go down this path. What does that lead incubation, kind of that relationship incubation growth look like over time? So maybe let us know if you think that would be valuable content, because I think it's really a whole process in and of itself. But the step one is creating time in your schedule and making recruiting and growth of your branch a priority. If you don't know the right ways to do that, seek out coaching, mentorship around that, and just recognize that as great as you may be at what you do and what you want to help people accomplish, if they don't know who you are or that you're interested in helping them, they're never going to join your team. And so that has to be your goal, is to share your ideas about growth and what you're trying to accomplish with others so that they can come along on that journey with you.
Amen, brother.
Cool. Right on. Well, hey, that's been another awesome episode of Market Shares. You guys, thanks for always tuning in and watching this content and letting other people in the industry know about it. If you enjoy it, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next episode here at Market Shares. Bye for now.